Ethan Carter stared out at the glowing city skyline, his once grand dreams now teetering on the edge of collapse. His tech company, once a beacon of innovation, was crumbling. Investors were backing out. Clients were losing faith. And the most important meeting of his career was just 48 hours away. But Ethan wasn't just missing a plan. He was missing something far more personal, a believable fiancée. Frustrated and desperate, Ethan wandered the rainy city streets until the warm light of a Starbucks caught his attention. Inside, the air was cozy, filled with the scent of coffee and faint jazz. Behind the counter stood a lone barista, her messy bun barely holding, her green apron worn but clean. Despite the late hour, her smile was genuine. "Welcome to Starbucks," she greeted with an easy cheer. "What can I get you?" "Black coffee, extra strong," Ethan muttered. As she prepared his drink, Ethan found himself intrigued. Her name tag read Lily, and though she looked tired, there was something about her unfiltered, confident, unaffected by the world around her. "Long night?" she asked as she handed him the cup. "You could say that," Ethan replied, his tone clipped. "Well, at least caffeine exists," she quipped, leaning against the counter. "That and people watching. Like you look like someone with a big problem." Her words hit closer to home than he liked, but her bluntness caught his attention. "And what makes you think you know me?" he challenged. Lily smirked. "I've worked here long enough to know when someone's got the weight of the world on their shoulders. But you look more lost than tired." Ethan blinked, caught off guard by her accuracy. He was about to walk away when, impulsively, he asked, "What would you do if your entire life, everything you built, was hanging by a thread?" "I'd fight like hell to save it," Lily answered without hesitation. "But then again, I don't have much to lose." Her blunt response lit a spark in Ethan. She wasn't just any barista. She was authentic, the exact opposite of the world he inhabited. "Lily, right?" he asked, his tone shifting. "Yeah. Why?" she replied, eyeing him warily. Ethan stepped closer, his voice low. "What if I told you I had a job that could change your life?" Lily tilted her head, skeptical. "Oh, you need someone to fetch your coffee full-time." "No," Ethan said, smirking. "I need someone to pretend to be my fiancé." The cafe fell silent, save for the soft hum of the espresso machine. Lily blinked, unsure if she'd heard him correctly. "I'm sorry." "What?" "You heard me. I have a meeting that could save my company. And I need to look stable, grounded." "You're exactly what I need," Lily burst out laughing. "You're insane," she managed through her giggles. But the intensity in Ethan's eyes silenced her. "I'll pay you enough to change your life," he said plainly. "Whatever debts, struggles, you name it." Lily hesitated. Her overdue rent, her mom's medical bills, and her brother's tuition weighed heavily on her mind. "And if this backfires, you still get paid," Ethan promised. No strings attached. The seconds stretched into eternity before she crossed her arms, exhaling sharply. "Fine. But if this goes sideways, I'm charging you double." Ethan extended his hand, a confident grin on his face. "Deal." As their hands met, Lily felt a chill, not from fear, but from the sense that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't begin to imagine. Where are you watching from? Share your city in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next part of this thrilling story. What would you do if you were in Lily's shoes? Let us know in the comments. Lily regretted her decision almost immediately. Standing in the grand foyer of Ethan Carter's penthouse the next evening, she couldn't help but feel completely out of place. The pristine marble floors, the towering glass windows that overlooked the city, and the smell of expensive leather furniture screamed wealth, a world she couldn't have been farther from. Her Starbucks apron had been traded for a pair of worn jeans and a hoodie, but even that felt painfully inadequate in this space. Ethan descended the sweeping staircase, dressed in a tailored suit that looked like it cost more than her annual salary. He stopped at the bottom step, his sharp gaze taking her in with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "This is what you wore?" he asked, his tone hovering between judgment and amusement. Lily folded her arms, her expression defiant. "You hired me to pretend to be your fiancé, not to audition for a fashion show." Ethan sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "If we're going to pull this off, you'll need to look the part. You can't show up at a meeting with millionaires dressed like you're going to the laundromat." Lily rolled her eyes. "Maybe you should have hired an actress." "I don't need an actress," Ethan shot back, his tone firm. "I need someone genuine, someone real. And for some inexplicable reason, that's you." His words were meant as a compliment, but they only irritated Lily further. She didn't like the idea of being transformed into something she wasn't just to fit into Ethan's world. Still, she'd made a deal, and the money he was offering was too good to pass up. Ethan clapped his hands, snapping her out of her thoughts. "Clara will take it from here." Lily turned as a poised woman in her mid-40s appeared, dressed impeccably in a black pencil skirt and blouse. Her expression was one of polite indifference, but her sharp eyes assessed Lily like a puzzle she needed to solve. "This is her?" Clara asked, raising an eyebrow. "This is her," Ethan confirmed, his tone flat. "Do whatever you need to do to make her look presentable." But Clara didn't miss a beat. "Follow me." "Miss Brooks." Lily hesitated, but ultimately followed Clara into a room that looked like a high-end boutique. Racks of designer dresses lined the walls, and a table covered in jewelry and accessories sat in the center. Lily's stomach turned at the sight. "I'm not wearing anything ridiculous," she announced. Clara didn't even blink. "I'll be the judge of that." The next 2 hours were a whirlwind of fittings, styling, and lectures on etiquette. Lily was stuffed into dresses that felt more like cages, had her hair twisted and sprayed into submission, and was made to practice walking in heels that felt like torture devices. Every time she stumbled or protested, Clara sighed audibly, muttering something about an impossible task. "Why are you even doing this?" Lily asked at one point, glaring at her reflection in the mirror as Clara adjusted a diamond necklace around her neck. "Because Mr. Carter pays me very well," Clara replied without looking up. "And because this isn't about you, it's about saving his company." Lily's jaw tightened. She hated being treated like a project, a tool in Ethan's elaborate scheme. But deep down, she knew Clara was right. This wasn't about her. By the time they were done, Lily barely recognized herself. The mirror reflected a polished, elegant woman in a sleek black dress and understated jewelry. Her hair was pulled back into a smooth chignon, and her makeup was flawless, accentuating her features without making her look overdone. "You'll pass," Clara said finally, her tone begrudgingly approving. Lily turned away from the mirror, her discomfort evident. "I don't feel like myself." "You're not supposed to," Clara replied matter-of-factly. Back in the foyer, Ethan was waiting, scrolling through his phone. When he looked up and saw Lily, he froze for a moment, his expression unreadable. "Well?" she asked, crossing her arms despite the dress. Ethan blinked, recovering quickly. "It'll work." "Wow," Lily said dryly. "Don't overwhelm me with your enthusiasm." Ethan smirked faintly but didn't respond. Instead, he handed her a folder filled with papers. "This is everything you need to know. Our fake story, how we met, how long we've been together. Everything." Lily flipped through the pages, her brow furrowing. "You've really thought this through." "I don't leave things to chance," Ethan said simply. "Study it. We can't afford any mistakes." Lily sighed, setting the folder aside. "Let's get one thing straight. I'm doing this for the money, not because I care about your company or your investors. So don't expect me to suddenly turn into the perfect fiancé." "I wouldn't dream of it," Ethan replied, his tone laced with sarcasm. "Just do enough to convince them. That's all I need." The next day, Lily arrived at the venue with Ethan, her nerves threatening to get the best of her. The grand ballroom was filled with sharply dressed men and women, their laughter and chatter echoing off the gilded walls. Chandeliers sparkled overhead, and servers moved gracefully between the guests with trays of champagne. Ethan leaned in, his voice low. "Remember, smile. Stay calm. And don't say too much." "Right," Lily muttered. "Smile, nod, and blend in." "Got it." He offered his arm, and she reluctantly took it as they stepped into the room. All eyes seemed to turn to them, and Lily felt her stomach churn. Ethan, however, looked perfectly at ease, his posture confident and his smile effortless. "Ethan, good to see you," a man called out, approaching them with a glass of wine in hand. He was older, with a commanding presence and sharp eyes that immediately focused on Lily. "And this must be your fiancée," the man said, his tone curious. Lily forced a smile, her grip on Ethan's arm tightening. "Lily Brooks," she said, extending a hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you." The man shook her hand, his gaze lingering just a second too long. Charmed. "Ethan's a lucky man," Ethan chuckled, smoothly deflecting the attention. "Lily's been my rock through everything. I don't know what I'd do without her." Lily felt her cheeks flush at his words, even though she knew they were just for show. As the conversation shifted to business, she silently vowed to get through the night without any missteps. But deep down, she had a sinking feeling that pretending to be someone she wasn't would only get harder from here. The grand ballroom buzzed with conversation, laughter, and the occasional clinking of glasses. Ethan moved through the crowd with practiced ease, introducing Lily to investors and potential allies. Each time, she would smile, exchange pleasantries, and silently pray she wouldn't mess up. The first hour passed relatively smoothly. Lily managed to remember the backstory Ethan had drilled into her. They had met at a charity event, bonded over their shared interest in social causes, and had been inseparable ever since. It was polished, rehearsed, and utterly fake. But for the most part, it seemed to work. At least until Marcus Gray entered the picture. Marcus, a tall man with silver hair and an air of smug superiority, was Ethan's biggest rival. He had built his own empire by stepping on others, and he relished any opportunity to humiliate Ethan. As soon as Marcus spotted Ethan and Lily, a predatory smile spread across his face. "Ethan," Marcus greeted, his voice oozing false warmth as he approached. "I was starting to think you wouldn't show. Wouldn't miss it," Ethan replied smoothly, though his jaw tightened ever so slightly. "And who is this?" Marcus turned his attention to Lily, his eyes narrowing slightly as he took her in. "You must be the famous fiancée I've heard so much about." "Lily Brooks," she said, extending her hand with a confident smile she didn't quite feel. Marcus shook her hand, his grip firm but lingering a second too long. "Charmed. Ethan's kept you quite the secret."
"Well,
"I like to think of myself as his secret weapon," Lily quipped, earning a surprised look from both men. Ethan suppressed a smirk while Marcus raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued, a sharp tongue. "I like that." Lily knew she had to tread carefully. Marcus was dangerous, not in a physical sense, but in the way he could dismantle someone with words alone, and the way he watched her made her skin crawl, as if he were already piecing together her secrets. "So, tell me." "Lily," Marcus said, swirling his wine glass, "what drew you to Ethan? Was it his charm, his intellect, or perhaps his bank account?" The question hung in the air, cutting through the polite facade like a knife. Lily felt Ethan stiffen beside her, but he didn't intervene. This was her test, and she knew it. She smiled, refusing to let Marcus rattle her. "Ethan's success is impressive, of course," she said, her tone calm but pointed. "But what really drew me to him was his drive. He doesn't just see problems, he finds solutions. That kind of determination is hard to ignore." Marcus chuckled, clearly surprised by her answer, a diplomatic response. "You're good. I'll give you that. She's more than good." Ethan interjected, his voice firm. "She's the best thing that's ever happened to me." The sincerity in Ethan's tone caught Lily off guard. For a moment, she almost believed him. But before she could dwell on it, Marcus changed tactics. "Well, Ethan, you've certainly found someone intriguing. But I must warn you, relationships in this world can be tricky. People always dig for the truth." Marcus's words carried a subtle threat, but Ethan didn't flinch. "Good thing Lily and I have nothing to hide," he replied, his smile sharp. Marcus inclined his head slightly, conceding the verbal battle for now. "I suppose time will tell. Enjoy your evening." As Marcus walked away, Lily let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "That guy's a real piece of work," she muttered. "Welcome to my world," Ethan said grimly. "Marcus is always looking for weaknesses. He'll keep pushing, so we need to stay ahead of him." Lily frowned. "What happens if he finds out the truth?" "He won't," Ethan said firmly, "because we won't let him." The rest of the evening was a blur of introductions, small talk, and forced smiles. Lily played her part well, but the encounter with Marcus had shaken her. She could feel his eyes on her from across the room, as if he were watching for the slightest crack in their story. Toward the end of the night, things took an unexpected turn. One of the investors, an older woman named Vivian Cole, approached them with a warm smile. "Ethan, it's good to see you," Vivian said, her gaze softening as it landed on Lily. "And this must be Lily. I've heard so much about you. All good things. I hope," Lily said with a smile. "Of course," Vivian replied. "But I must admit, I'm curious, what do you see in a man like Ethan?" "He's brilliant." "Yes, but he can also be difficult." Lily hesitated, caught off guard by the question. Vivian's tone wasn't hostile, but it felt genuine, as if she truly wanted to know. "He challenges me," Lily said finally, "in ways I didn't expect. And he makes me want to be better, not just for him, but for myself." Vivian studied her for a moment, then nodded. "That's a good answer, and a good foundation for a partnership. I hope you two make it work." As Vivian walked away, Lily felt a strange mix of emotions. She didn't know if what she'd said was entirely true, but a part of her wanted it to be. When the evening finally ended, Ethan and Lily walked out of the venue together, the cool night air a welcome relief. "You did well," Ethan said, his tone neutral. "Thanks," Lily replied, though her voice was tinged with sarcasm. "High praise from Mr. Perfect." Ethan smirked faintly but didn't respond. They climbed into the waiting car, and silence settled between them as they drove back to the penthouse. As Lily stared out the window, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Marcus wouldn't back down, and the more time she spent with Ethan, the harder it became to separate the fake from the real. Something told her that the cracks in their facade weren't just from the outside. They were starting to form between them as well. And when they finally broke, she wasn't sure if either of them would come out unscathed. Lily woke the next morning feeling more drained than she expected. The glamorous world Ethan inhabited had proven to be far more exhausting than her late-night shifts at Starbucks. She stretched lazily in the massive guest room Ethan had insisted she stay in, just for convenience, he'd said. But the luxurious surroundings did nothing to ease her nerves. Today, Ethan had planned another critical event, a private brunch with a few key investors, including Vivian Cole and, unfortunately, Marcus Gray. Lily couldn't help but feel that Marcus was circling like a shark, waiting for the perfect moment to expose the cracks in their story. Ethan was already seated in the dining area when Lily descended the grand staircase. He looked impeccable as always in a dark blazer, his hair neatly combed back. Her steaming cup of coffee rested in front of him, and he barely glanced up as she entered. "You're late," he said. His tone clipped. Lily rolled her eyes, used to his cold demeanor by now. "Good morning to you, too. You should eat something," he continued, nodding toward the array of pastries and fresh fruit spread out on the table. "You'll need your energy." "For what?" More polite smiles and nodding. Lily grabbed a croissant and sat across from him. "I'm getting pretty good at that." Ethan finally looked up, his eyes sharp. "Today is different. Marcus will be there, and he's already suspicious." We need to be perfect. Perfect, Lily muttered, taking a bite of the croissant. Your favorite word. Ethan didn't rise to the bait, instead handing her a list of topics they might encounter during brunch. Study this. We can't afford any mistakes. Lily snatched the list, glancing over it. You know, for someone who claims to need me because I'm genuine, you sure don't want me to act like myself. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. Instead, he stood and adjusted his blazer. Be ready in 20 minutes. As he walked away, Lily sighed, her frustration mounting. This wasn't the life she wanted, not even temporarily. But the money Ethan had promised still loomed large in her mind, a lifeline she couldn't afford to lose. The brunch was held in a stunning glass-walled room at one of the city's most exclusive clubs. The sunlight streamed in, highlighting the perfectly arranged table settings and the panoramic view of the skyline. Lily felt a wave of insecurity as she followed Ethan into the room, her sleek black dress suddenly feeling too tight. Vivian was the first to greet them, her smile warm but perceptive. Lily, you look lovely, she said, giving Ethan a knowing glance. You must be quite the calming influence on our Ethan. Lily forced a smile. I try. They took their seats, and the small talk began. Lily focused on her role, chiming in occasionally, but keeping her words careful and measured. She noticed Marcus watching her from across the table, his expression unreadable but his intent clear. He was looking for a misstep. Halfway through the meal, Marcus leaned forward, addressing Lily directly. So, Lily, Ethan mentioned you two met at a charity event. Which one was it again? Lily froze, her mind scrambling. She had memorized the backstory Ethan had provided, but in the moment, the pressure made her hesitate. It was the Children's Literacy Fundraiser, she finally said, forcing a smile. Ah, yes, Marcus replied smoothly. A noble cause. Did you donate, or were you volunteering? Before Lily could answer, Ethan cut in. Lily was volunteering. Of course, she's always been passionate about giving back. Marcus's smile widened, and Lily felt a chill run down her spine. How admirable, he said. You must have quite a busy schedule, balancing your volunteering with your other commitments. I manage, Lily replied, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. Marcus didn't press further, but the look in his eyes told her he wasn't done. He was testing her, probing for weaknesses, and it was only a matter of time before he found one. After the brunch ended, Ethan and Lily rode back to the penthouse in silence. Ethan's expression was unreadable, but Lily could feel the tension radiating off him. You hesitated, he said finally, breaking the silence. Excuse me? Lily shot back, glaring at him. I've been bending over backward to play your perfect fiancé, and all you can do is criticize. Ethan sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. This isn't about you, Lily. It's about keeping everything I've built from falling apart. Right, Lily snapped, because nothing else matters to you but your precious company. Ethan turned to her, his eyes hard. That's not fair. What's not fair? Lily shot back, her voice rising, is you dragging me into this mess and expecting me to act like it's not suffocating me. For a moment, they stared at each other, the tension between them crackling like electricity. Finally, Ethan looked away, his jaw tight. I'm doing what I have to do, he said quietly. Lily didn't respond. Turning her gaze to the city streets flashing past the window, she felt trapped, not just by Ethan's world, but by the growing realization that her feelings for him were becoming more complicated than she'd expected. That evening, as Lily sat alone in her guest room, she couldn't shake the sense that something was about to give. Marcus wasn't going to let this go, and Ethan's relentless need for control was pushing her to her breaking point. For the first time, she wondered if the money was worth it, if anything was worth staying in a world that felt so alien to her. But even as doubt crept in, a part of her couldn't let go of the connection she'd begun to feel with Ethan, no matter how much she tried to deny it. Little did she know, the cracks in their facade were about to widen, and the consequences would change everything. The next day, Ethan called Lily into his office, his usual composed demeanor replaced by something darker. His phone lay face down on his desk, a rare sign that he wasn't as in control as he wanted to appear. "Sit," he said curtly, motioning to the chair in front of his desk. Lily crossed her arms. "What now? Did I smile wrong at brunch? This isn't a joke." "Lily," Ethan snapped, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "Marcus is digging." "Hard." Lily's stomach dropped. "What do you mean? Digging?" Ethan leaned forward, his piercing gaze locking onto hers. "He's already reached out to people from your past, co-workers, old friends. He's looking for anything he can use to prove you're not who we say you are." Lily's breath caught. She hadn't expected Marcus to go this far. "Why? What does he get out of this?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Marcus doesn't just want to beat me. He wants to humiliate me. If he exposes this, my credibility with the investors is gone. And so is my company." Lily swallowed hard, the weight of the situation settling heavily on her shoulders. "So what do we do?" Ethan exhaled slowly, sitting back in his chair. "We outmaneuver him, but that means we need to be flawless. From now on, every detail of our story has to hold up. No hesitation, no slip-ups." "Great," Lily muttered, sinking into the chair. No pressure. Later that evening, Ethan and Lily attended a charity gala, a high-profile event where Marcus was sure to make an appearance. The venue was dazzling, with glittering chandeliers and a string quartet playing softly in the background. Lily, dressed in a shimmering emerald gown, felt like an imposter in a fairy tale. Ethan offered his arm as they entered, his smile confident and practiced. "Remember, you're the love of my life," he murmured under his breath. "Right," Lily replied, forcing a smile. Madly in love. The night started smoothly. Ethan introduced Lily to several influential guests, and she managed to charm them with her wit and warmth. For a moment, she almost believed they could pull this off. But then Marcus arrived. He sauntered into the room like he owned it, his sharp suit and smug expression drawing attention wherever he went. His eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on Ethan and Lily. His smile widened, and he made a beeline for them. "Ethan," Marcus greeted, his tone dripping with insincerity. "And Lily, you're looking radiant tonight." "Marcus," Ethan replied coolly. "Enjoying yourself?" "Immensely," Marcus said, his gaze lingering on Lily. "Though I must say, I've been hearing some interesting things lately." Lily tensed, but Ethan didn't flinch. "Care to elaborate?" "Oh, nothing serious," Marcus said, his voice light but his eyes cold. "Just some whispers about your lovely fiancée. Seems her past isn't as picture-perfect as you've led everyone to believe." Ethan's expression didn't waver. "Rumors are easy to start. Marcus, I hope you're not stooping to that level." "Of course not," Marcus said with a chuckle. "But you know how people talk. It'd be a shame if anything unsavory came to light." Lily felt her pulse quicken, her mind racing. She could see the subtle triumph in Marcus's eyes, the satisfaction of knowing he'd rattled them. She had to think fast. "Well, I suppose it's a good thing we're not interested in perfection," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "Ethan fell in love with me for who I am, flaws and all. Isn't that what real love is about?" Marcus tilted his head, clearly surprised by her response. Ethan, too, glanced at her, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. "Touché," Marcus said, raising his glass. "Here's to authenticity." He walked away, leaving Lily and Ethan in tense silence. As the gala continued, Ethan and Lily managed to keep up appearances, but the encounter with Marcus had left them both shaken. Back at the penthouse later that night, Ethan poured himself a glass of whiskey and stared out the window, his shoulders tense. "You handled that well," he said finally, breaking the silence. "Thanks," Lily replied, sinking onto the couch. "But Marcus isn't going to stop." "Is he?" "No," Ethan admitted, his voice heavy, He'll keep pushing until he finds something he can use. Lily hesitated, then asked the question that had been nagging at her all night. Ethan, what happens if he wins? If this all falls apart? Ethan turned to face her, his expression uncharacteristically vulnerable. Then I lose everything. His words hung in the air, and for the first time, Lily saw past the polished exterior he always wore. He wasn't just fighting for his company, he was fighting to hold on to the one thing that gave his life meaning. You don't have to do this alone, Lily said quietly. We're in this together. Remember? Ethan's gaze softened, and for a moment, the walls between them seemed to fade. Thank you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. But even as they found a brief moment of solidarity, Marcus was already making his next move. The following morning, a damning article appeared online, questioning the legitimacy of Ethan and Lily's relationship. The headline read, "Millionaire's fiancé or hired help? The truth behind Ethan Carter's engagement." Ethan slammed his phone onto the desk, his fury barely contained. He's playing dirty. Lily, standing nearby, felt her stomach sink. What do we do now? Ethan's eyes burned with determination. We fight back. Hard. As the stakes escalated, so did the pressure. And for the first time, Lily began to wonder if they were in over their heads, or if the truth, once uncovered, would destroy everything they'd built together. The fallout from the article hit Ethan and Lily like a tidal wave. Investors called incessantly, demanding explanations. Social media was ablaze with speculation, and Marcus Gray's smug grin seemed to linger in every corner of Ethan's mind. Back at the penthouse, the atmosphere was tense. Ethan paced the living room, his phone glued to his ear as he tried to contain the damage. Lily sat on the couch, scrolling through the article that had ignited the chaos. Millionaire's fiancé or hired help? The truth behind Ethan Carter's engagement. The article recounted suspicious details. Lily's sudden appearance, her lack of a traceable past in Ethan's circles, and anonymous sources claiming their relationship was staged. While no concrete proof was offered, the story planted enough doubt to do significant damage. This is a disaster, Ethan muttered after ending his latest call. Marcus didn't just question our relationship, he's using this to discredit my entire business. Maybe if we... Lily started, but Ethan cut her off. I don't need a maybe. Lily, I need a solution. The sharpness in his voice stung, and Lily's jaw tightened. I'm trying to help. Ethan, then try harder. He snapped, running a hand through his hair. Silence fell between them, heavy and suffocating. Finally, Ethan sighed, his tone softening. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I can't afford to lose this. Lily nodded, but the tension lingered. She could see the cracks in Ethan's polished exterior growing deeper, and for the first time, she wondered if they could patch them in time. Later that evening, Ethan called for an emergency meeting with his core team, including Clara, his PR specialist. Lily sat off to the side, observing as they strategized. We need to get ahead of this, Clara said, her tone brisk. Deny the allegations, issue a statement, and redirect the narrative. That won't be enough, Ethan said, shaking his head. Marcus won't stop until he's completely destroyed my credibility. What about a press conference? Lily suggested, her voice tentative. The room turned toward her, and she hesitated before continuing. If we address this publicly, together, and present a united front, it might take the wind out of Marcus's sails. Clara raised an eyebrow. It's risky. If you falter or contradict each other, it'll only make things worse. Ethan considered this, his gaze flicking to Lily. Can you handle that? Lily straightened, meeting his eyes. I can handle it. The next day, the press conference was held in a sleek, modern venue downtown. Cameras flashed as Ethan and Lily stepped onto the stage, hand in hand. Ethan's grip was firm, a silent reminder to stay strong. Ethan began, his voice steady. Over the past few days, rumors have circulated, questioning the authenticity of my relationship with Lily Brooks. These accusations are not only baseless, but an attempt to undermine my character and the work my team and I have built over the years. He glanced at Lily, giving her the cue to speak. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. When I first met Ethan, I had no idea what I was walking into, she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. I wasn't from his world, and I never imagined I'd end up standing here. But what I found was a man who's more than just a businessman. He's passionate, driven, and, yes, sometimes infuriating. But he's also someone who believes in fighting for what matters. Her words were met with murmurs from the press. Ethan squeezed her hand lightly, a small gesture of reassurance. As for the claims about our relationship, Lily continued, her gaze unwavering. I can only say this, Ethan and I aren't perfect, but what we have is real. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Ethan stepped back in, addressing the crowd with a firm tone. We've provided a detailed timeline of our relationship to the press, along with corroborating witnesses who can speak to its authenticity. I refuse to let baseless attacks distract from the work we're doing. The press conference ended with mixed reactions. Some reporters seemed satisfied, while others left with lingering doubts. But for Ethan and Lily, it felt like a small victory. That evening, back at the penthouse, Lily found Ethan in his office, staring at the city lights. He didn't acknowledge her as she entered, but she could feel the weight of his thoughts. Do you think it worked? She asked softly. Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. It's hard to say. Marcus won't back down easily. Lily hesitated before stepping closer. Ethan, why is this so important to you? The company, the image. Why does it matter so much? He looked at her, his expression conflicted. Because it's all I have, he admitted quietly. I built this company from nothing. It's not just my livelihood, it's my identity. Without it, I don't know who I am. Lily's chest tightened at his vulnerability. She reached out, placing a hand on his arm. You're more than your company. Ethan, you're more than Marcus's games. And if you don't see that, you're going to lose more than just your business. Ethan looked at her, something shifting in his eyes. For a moment, it seemed like he might say something. But instead, he turned back to the window. Meanwhile, Marcus was already preparing his next move. He wasn't satisfied with shaking Ethan's foundation. He wanted to tear it apart completely. And this time, he was aiming directly at Lily. The next day, a video surfaced online, an edited clip of Lily working at Starbucks, paired with a fabricated narrative. The headline read, From Coffee Shop to Fiancée, the true story behind Ethan Carter's mystery woman. The attacks had become personal, and the line between their fabricated story and reality was beginning to blur. As the storm raged on, Ethan and Lily realized they weren't just fighting for his company anymore. They were fighting for the truth of what their relationship had become. The video spread like wildfire. Clips of Lily working at Starbucks, taken from security footage and spliced together with damning narration, painted a story of manipulation and deceit. The implication was clear. Ethan had hired a barista to pose as his fiancée, using her as a pawn to save his crumbling empire. The internet, hungry for scandal, latched onto the story. Memes, hashtags, and think pieces flooded social media. At the penthouse, Ethan watched the chaos unfold on his laptop. His jaw clenched. Lily stood behind him, arms crossed tightly over her chest, her face pale. They're ripping me apart, Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. They're calling me a liar, a gold digger, everything. Ethan closed the laptop with more force than necessary and turned to her. This is Marcus. He's escalating because the press conference rattled him. That's supposed to make me feel better? Lily snapped. Because it doesn't. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. I'll fix this. How? Lily demanded, her voice rising. This isn't just about your company anymore. Ethan, it's about me. My life. And I didn't sign up to have the entire world think I'm some kind of con artist. For a moment, Ethan had no response. He looked at her, the frustration and guilt clear in his eyes, but words failed him. "I need some air," Lily said abruptly, grabbing her coat and heading for the door. Lily wandered aimlessly through the city streets, her mind racing. The weight of the past few weeks was suffocating, and the video felt like the final straw. She thought back to the moment she agreed to Ethan's insane proposition. At the time, it had seemed like a lifeline, an escape from her financial struggles. Now, it felt like a noose tightening around her neck. She found herself at a quiet park and sat down on a bench, staring at the empty playground. The cold evening air bit at her cheeks, but she didn't move. For the first time in a long while, she let herself cry. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a text from Ethan. "Come back, please." When Lily returned to the penthouse, Ethan was waiting in the foyer. He looked relieved to see her but didn't say anything at first. Instead, he handed her a cup of tea and gestured for her to sit. "I know I've put you in an impossible position," he began, his voice low. "And I'm sorry. None of this was supposed to happen." Lily stared into her cup, not meeting his eyes. "You keep saying that, Ethan, but it doesn't change anything." He hesitated before continuing. "You're right. Saying it isn't enough. So let me show you something." He led her into his office, where his laptop was open to a document. It was a detailed statement, one that addressed the allegations head-on. But this time, it wasn't just about Ethan's company, it was about Lily. "I'm going to release this tomorrow," he said. "It clears your name. It explains the truth about how we met and why I asked for your help." Lily's head snapped up. "The truth? You mean, you're admitting it was fake?" "Yes," Ethan said firmly. "If I don't, Marcus will keep coming after you, and I won't let him destroy your life because of me." Lily stared at him, stunned. "But if you do this, won't it ruin you?" "Maybe," Ethan admitted. "But I've realized something. Lily, my company, my reputation, none of it means anything if it cost me you." The sincerity in his voice took Lily's breath away. For the first time, she saw the walls he'd built around himself come down completely. He wasn't the cold, calculating businessman she'd met weeks ago. He was just a man, scared of losing something real. "I can't let you do that," Lily said finally. "You've worked too hard to throw it all away, and I can't let you keep suffering for my mistakes." Ethan countered. "This is my fight, Lily, not yours." They stared at each other for a long moment, the weight of unspoken emotions hanging between them. Finally, Lily reached out, placing her hand over his on the desk. "Then we fight together," she said softly. The next morning, Ethan and Lily held another press conference. This time, there was no pretense, no rehearsed lines or carefully constructed lies. Instead, Ethan stood before the cameras and told the truth. "Yes, I asked Lily to pose as my fiancée," he admitted. "At the time, I believed it was the only way to save my company, but what I didn't expect was that she would save me in ways I never saw coming." He turned to Lily, who stepped forward, her voice steady despite the nerves. "What started as a business arrangement became something I never thought I'd find, a real connection. I know the circumstances were unconventional, but the truth is, Ethan and I have built something real." The room buzzed with whispers and clicking cameras, but neither of them faltered. They stood together, united, as they faced the media storm head-on. Later that evening, back at the penthouse, Ethan and Lily sat on the balcony, watching the city lights. The press conference hadn't magically fixed everything. There were still doubts, still critics, but for the first time, they felt a sense of peace. "You didn't have to do that," Lily said, breaking the silence. "Admitting everything. You could have just let me walk away." Ethan turned to her, his expression soft. "I couldn't let you walk away. Not anymore." Lily smiled faintly, her heart swelling despite herself. "So, what happens now?" "Now?" Ethan said, leaning back in his chair. "We figure out what's next. Together." For the first time in weeks, Lily felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but at least now, they were walking it side by side. And for the first time, that felt like enough. The fallout from the press conference was immediate and chaotic. News outlets were divided. Some praised Ethan and Lily for their honesty, while others continued to question their motives. Social media lit up with both support and skepticism. But amidst the noise, one thing became clear. Ethan and Lily's transparency had shifted the narrative. At the penthouse, the atmosphere was cautiously optimistic. Ethan's core team had gathered in his office, poring over the latest updates. Clara stood by the desk, arms crossed, her sharp eyes scanning a report. "We've stemmed the bleeding," she said, her tone brisk. "Investors are still cautious, but the public response has been more forgiving than I expected." "Forgiving?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You mean they don't want my head on a spike anymore?" Clara smirked faintly. "Something like that. The human angle worked. People love a redemption story, and your decision to tell the truth has bought you some goodwill." Ethan nodded, but his focus shifted to Lily, who sat quietly on the couch. She had been uncharacteristically subdued since the press conference, her mind clearly elsewhere. "Lily," he said gently, drawing her attention. "You okay?" She blinked, forcing a small smile. "Yeah, just processing." Clara glanced between them before clearing her throat. "I'll leave you two to it. Call me if anything changes." As Clara exited the room, Ethan moved to sit beside Lily. He studied her carefully, his expression softening. "Talk to me," Lily sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I guess I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything. A month ago, I was just a barista trying to make rent. Now I'm this," she gestured vaguely, her voice tinged with disbelief, part of some media circus. "You're more than that," Ethan said firmly. "You've been incredible through all of this. I couldn't have done it without you." Lily met his gaze, her chest tightening. "And what happens now?" "Ethan, we've told the truth. But what does that mean for us? For you?" Ethan hesitated, his jaw tightening. "It means we rebuild. My company, my reputation, everything. But I don't want to do it alone." The vulnerability in his voice caught Lily off guard. She had seen Ethan as many things: arrogant, driven, and calculating. But this version of him, raw, unguarded, was new. "What about us?" she asked softly. "Was what you said at the press conference just for show?" Ethan reached for her hand, his touch steady. "None of it was for show. Lily, everything I said was real." Her breath hitched, the sincerity in his eyes making her heart race. For weeks, she had tried to keep her feelings for him at bay, telling herself it was all just part of the arrangement. But now, there was no denying it. She had fallen for him. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "This, whatever this is." Ethan's lips curved into a small, reassuring smile. "Neither do I, but we'll figure it out, together." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of rebuilding. Ethan threw himself into stabilizing his company, holding meetings with investors and implementing new strategies. Lily, meanwhile, found herself unexpectedly involved in the process. She wasn't a business expert, but her grounded perspective proved invaluable. Ethan started asking for her input on presentations, and her fresh ideas often caught his team off guard, in a good way. Slowly but surely, the company began to recover. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Ethan and Lily sat on the penthouse balcony, a bottle of wine between them. The city sparkled below, and for the first time in what felt like forever, they allowed themselves to relax. "You know," Lily said, swirling her glass, "if you'd told me a month ago that I'd be helping run a tech company, I would have laughed in your face." Ethan chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "And if you'd told me I'd be falling for a barista, I would have done the same." Lily glanced at him, her cheeks warming. "Falling?" Ethan met her gaze, his expression serious. "Yeah, falling." "Hud." The words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. For a moment, Lily was speechless, her emotions threatening to overwhelm her. But then she smiled, setting her glass down. "Well," she said, her voice soft but steady, It's a good thing I'm falling too. As their relationship deepened, so did their resolve to face the challenges ahead. Marcus Gray hadn't disappeared entirely. He continued to stir trouble in the background, but his influence was waning. The investors who had once doubted Ethan now began to rally behind him, impressed by his transparency and resilience. Lily also began to think about her own future. For years, she had put her dreams on hold, consumed by the struggle to make ends meet. But now, with Ethan's support, she allowed herself to imagine more. She started sketching out plans for a small business, a cafe that combined her love for coffee with a welcoming space for the community. One night, as she showed Ethan her sketches, he looked at her with a mixture of admiration and pride. "You're incredible. You know that?" he said. Lily laughed softly. "You're biased." "Maybe," Ethan admitted, "but that doesn't make it any less true." Their journey wasn't perfect. There were still moments of doubt, still whispers from those who questioned their story. But for the first time, both Ethan and Lily felt like they were moving towards something real, something lasting. As they sat together on the balcony, the city lights twinkling around them, Ethan reached for Lily's hand. "Whatever happens next," he said, his voice steady, "we'll face it together." Lily squeezed his hand, a smile spreading across her face. Together. And for the first time in weeks, they both felt at peace, ready to embrace whatever the future held. Things were finally falling into place. Ethan's company was stabilizing. The media frenzy was dying down, and for the first time in weeks, both he and Lily felt like they could breathe again. Their partnership had become more than just an arrangement. It was the foundation of something real. But just as they started to settle into their new normal, Marcus Gray made one last move. It began with an email. Clara stormed into Ethan's office, her usually composed demeanor replaced by visible tension. She handed him her tablet, her lips pressed into a thin line. "You need to see this," she said. Ethan took the tablet and scanned the email, his eyes narrowing. It was from an anonymous source, but the content was clear. Marcus had gathered evidence of their original arrangement, payment records, correspondence, and even a timeline that contradicted their public story. He was threatening to leak everything unless Ethan agreed to sell a controlling stake in his company. Ethan's jaw clenched as he slammed the tablet onto his desk. "He's trying to blackmail me." Clara crossed her arms. "This isn't just about your company anymore. If this gets out, it'll destroy both you and Lily." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room. "What does he want exactly?" "A public surrender," Clara replied. "He wants you humiliated. Selling the company would be just the beginning." Ethan's mind raced. He had worked tirelessly to rebuild his reputation, to prove to the world and to himself that he could rise above Marcus's games. But now, the stakes were higher than ever. It wasn't just his career on the line. It was Lily's integrity and the trust they had painstakingly built together. "We're not giving in," Ethan said finally, his voice firm. "If Marcus thinks he can bully us, he's wrong." Clara nodded, her expression resolute. "Then we need a plan." That evening, Ethan explained the situation to Lily. They sat together on the penthouse couch, the weight of the revelation hanging heavy in the air. "So, let me get this straight," Lily said, her voice tinged with frustration. "Marcus has evidence that could ruin everything, and he's using it to blackmail you." Ethan nodded. "That's the gist of it." Lily leaned back, crossing her arms. "And your plan is what? Exactly?" Ethan hesitated, his jaw tightening. "To fight back. I'm not going to let him win." "Fight back how?" Lily pressed. "Because if this gets out, it's not just your company that's at risk. It's me, my name, my life. Do you have any idea how terrifying that is?" Ethan reached for her hand, his expression softening. "I know, Lily, and I'm not going to let that happen. We'll find a way." Lily studied him for a moment, her frustration giving way to determination. "Then we do this together." Ethan smiled faintly, grateful for her strength. Together. The next morning, Ethan and Lily met with Clara and a trusted legal advisor. They worked tirelessly to dissect Marcus's claims, searching for weaknesses in his evidence. It wasn't long before they found a crack, a forged document buried among the files Marcus had compiled. It was subtle, but enough to discredit his entire narrative, if presented correctly. "This is it," Clara said, tapping the screen. "This is how we bring him down." Ethan nodded, his resolve hardening. "Then let's make sure he doesn't see it coming." A week later, Ethan and Lily attended a high-profile business conference where Marcus was scheduled to speak. The event was packed with influential figures and media representatives, making it the perfect stage for their counterattack. As Marcus took the podium, his usual smugness on full display, Ethan leaned toward Lily. "Ready?" Lily smirked, her confidence shining through. "Let's do this." When it was Ethan's turn to speak, he addressed the crowd with his trademark composure. But as he delved into his presentation, he pivoted to the topic of integrity in business. "Recently, I've been the target of a coordinated effort to undermine not only my company, but my personal life," Ethan said, his voice steady and clear. "I've stayed silent until now, but it's time to set the record straight." He gestured to a screen behind him, where Clara had prepared a detailed breakdown of Marcus's fabricated evidence. The audience murmured as Ethan methodically dismantled each claim, exposing the forgery at the center of Marcus's scheme. "And to those who question my relationship with Lily," Ethan continued, his gaze softening as it landed on her. "What started as a business arrangement became something far more meaningful. I'm not ashamed of how we began, because it led me to the woman who's made me a better man." The room erupted in applause as Ethan stepped back from the podium. Lily joined him on stage, taking his hand as cameras flashed around them. Together, they faced the crowd, their united front, a testament to their resilience. After the conference, Marcus's reputation was in shambles. The evidence of his forgery spread quickly, and the investors who had once aligned with him distanced themselves entirely. Ethan, on the other hand, emerged stronger than ever, his honesty and determination winning over even his harshest critics. Back at the penthouse, Ethan and Lily celebrated with a quiet dinner. As they clinked their glasses, Ethan reached for her hand, his expression soft. "We did it," he said. "No," Lily corrected, her smile warm. "We did it together." For the first time in weeks, the future felt bright. Ethan and Lily had faced their biggest challenge yet and come out stronger for it. And as they looked toward the horizon, they knew that whatever came next, they would face it side by side. The days following the conference were a whirlwind of change. Ethan's company was finally free from Marcus's shadow, and the public began to see Ethan and Lily as more than just a scandal. They were a story of redemption, resilience, and unexpected love. For Lily, the transformation was surreal. Her quiet, predictable life as a barista had turned into something she could never have imagined. But now, for the first time, she felt like she was living on her terms, not just surviving. One crisp morning, Ethan invited Lily to a small cafe in the heart of the city. She assumed it was just another work meeting, but the mischievous glint in his eyes hinted otherwise. "What's this about?" Lily asked as they sat down by a sunny window. Ethan pulled out a small envelope and handed it to her. "Open it." Lily raised an eyebrow but complied. Inside was a deed, her name printed clearly at the top. She blinked, reading it again, her breath catching. This is for a cafe," she stammered. "Wait, there's this. It's yours," Ethan said, his voice soft but firm. "I remember you telling me how much you wanted a place of your own, a space where people could connect, relax, and feel at home. Now you have it." Lily's hands trembled as she clutched the paper. "Ethan, I don't even know what to say." "Say you'll make it amazing," he replied with a smile. "Because I know you will." Tears pricked her eyes as she leaned forward and hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing in me." The following weeks were a blur of activity as Lily threw herself into bringing her cafe to life. Ethan supported her every step of the way, from picking out furniture to brainstorming the perfect menu. Together, they transformed the empty space into something warm, vibrant, and uniquely hers. On opening day, the cafe buzzed with energy. Friends, family, and even some of Ethan's investors showed up to support Lily. She stood behind the counter, watching the smiling faces of her customers, her heart swelling with pride. Ethan approached her, a cup of coffee in hand. "How does it feel?" he asked. "Perfect," Lily replied, her smile radiant. "Absolutely perfect." That evening, as they walked home under the glow of the city lights, Ethan took her hand. "You know," he said, his tone teasing, "this might be the first time I felt like I don't have to plan every step ahead." Lily laughed. "Welcome to my world." "I think I like it," Ethan admitted, his gaze softening as he looked at her. "With you, everything feels right." They stopped at the edge of the park, where they had first shared an honest conversation about their struggles. The memory felt distant now, but it was a reminder of how far they had come. Ethan turned to her, his expression serious. "Lily," he began, reaching into his coat pocket. Her breath caught as he produced a small velvet box and dropped to one knee. "I don't want to wait any longer," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You're not just my partner, you're my everything. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Lily's eyes as she nodded vigorously. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, "Yes!" Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger before pulling her into a kiss. Around them, the world seemed to fade, leaving only the warmth of their love and the promise of a new chapter. As they walked home, hand in hand, Lily glanced at Ethan, her heart full. "So," as she teased, "does this mean you'll let me run my cafe without micromanaging?" Ethan laughed. "Not a chance." They both burst into laughter, the sound echoing through the quiet streets. For the first time in a long while, they felt ready to embrace whatever the future held, together. Thank you for watching this story of love, resilience, and second chances. What did you think of Ethan and Lily's journey? Would you have made the same choices they did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating tales like this one. And don't miss our next story. Hit that notification bell so you're always in the loop. Here's a question for you. What would you do if you were in Lily's shoes? Would you take the risk or walk away? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for being part of our community, and we'll see you in the next video.